As we consider ancient mysteries, perhaps one of the biggest lies under a mountain of earth in the heart of China, the tomb of the first emperor of unified China, Qin Shi Huang. His grave is not just a tomb. It lies at the heart of what is considered the world's largest burial complex, an underground realm so huge and enigmatic that even after over 2 millennia it has never been completely opened. Contemporary science, archaeology, and sophisticated scanning have taken us farther than ever before in deciphering the shadowy reality behind this lost ancient superpower. And yet, all the excavation and archaeology notwithstanding, the tomb itself remains closed, waiting like a quiet time capsule. What is contained within has intrigued, frightened, and baffled mankind for centuries. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Spark Science, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. For more than 2 millennia, the tomb of China's first emperor has inspired awe and fear. Qin Shi Huang, the man who emerged out of anarchy during the bloody Warring States era, forged a huge empire by eliminating all the competing states through sheer brutality. In 221 BCE, he proclaimed himself the first emperor of United China. His reign was glorious and ghastly. To his people he was a godlike figure who performed the impossible, as well as a tyrant who governed with unyielding brutality. At the tip of his iron fist, villages were burned to the ground, peasants went hungry, and whole families were annihilated in interminable wars of consolidation. But under his regime came radical reforms, a unified system of writing, one currency, rigid codes of law, and massive engineering feats such as the early beginnings of the Great Wall. In this paradox of violence and genius were the seeds of an empire that would define Chinese civilization for centuries to come. But Qin Shi Huang's rule wasn't just about controlling the living. It was about conquering death itself. He was mad for immortality and ordered expeditions to find legendary islands of eternal youth and took alchemists' potions laced with mercury, believing they could extend his life. Ironically, the same potions intended to keep him alive were slowly killing him. His fascination with immortality was not just in potions, it also stretched into the grandest work of his life, building a mausoleum that would see his power never cease. From 13 years of age, when he came to the throne of Qin, he decreed work start on a gargantuan underground mausoleum that would ultimately exhaust the labor of hundreds of thousands of convicts, soldiers, and peasants over almost 40 years. The outcome was a tomb unlike anything the world had yet seen. Ancient accounts, especially those of the historian Sima Qian, speak of rivers and seas of flowing mercury set up to symbolize the geography of China, star-painted ceilings that become a mapping of heaven, and treasure-filled, weapon-stored, palace-filled chambers. The most conspicuous portion of this mortuary complex, the Terracotta Army, was discovered in 1974, providing the first material evidence that the ancient chronicles were not myths. Over 8,000 life-size terracotta soldiers, each handmade with individual facial expressions, hairdos, and armor, were buried in military formation to protect their emperor in the afterlife. They were joined by 520 horses and 130 chariots, a spectral army trapped in time. These finds alone changed our perception of Qin Shi Huang's ambition and might. But archaeologists think they are only the tip of the iceberg of something much larger buried under the center mound. The tomb of the emperor was built not to be a resting chamber but a fortress of death. It is said that after the tomb's construction, thousands of workers were killed or buried alive inside to seal its secrets forever. Sima Qian even documented fatal traps, automatic crossbows hidden in the stone set to discharge upon intruders, rooms engineered to fall down, and sealed poisons inside the stone. To Qin Shi Huang, death itself was a battlefield, and his tomb was a war machine that would defend him forever. The tales became darker with the passage of time. Some said that his corpse was unnaturally well preserved, buried in mercury to remain whole for millennia. Others spoke of curses guarding the tomb, supernatural forces locked under the ground, even of knowledge beyond its time, some speculating, in conspiracy theories, that lost knowledge or alien technology could be buried there. When modern science caught up in the 1970s, at least some of these old tales proved true. Mercury levels found in soil samples around the tomb were so high they were labeled off the charts. This correlated with Sima Qian's description of mercury rivers in the underground palace. Suddenly, what had been legend became a fatal potentiality. Archaeologists have avoided opening the central chamber physically since. Instead, they employed non-invasive technology such as ground-penetrating radar, drone surveys, and high-definition 3D imaging. Scans made public these findings, which showed enormous empty cavities under the mound, tunneling that branched like veins, and chamber patterns that reflected constellations, indicating that Qin Shi Huang had truly tried to construct a scaled-down cosmos underground, an imitation of heaven and earth in which he would be the unchanging ruler. But the more near science approaches, the more perilous the enigma gets. Specialists caution that if the tomb is opened, it could be done irreversibly. Wood, textiles, and paintings that have endured only in airtight obscurity would disintegrate the moment they come into contact with oxygen. The mercury reserves within are a deadly threat, which can poison archaeologists and the environment. The tomb, in short, is not merely closed, it is weaponized. Chinese authorities discuss opening it annually, and annually the resolution is the same: wait for technology to be able to provide for preservation. But not everyone was content to wait. Undercover, there were rumors of controlled experiments aimed at exploring the tomb. Sealed tents were constructed over likely entry points and robotic drill heads with diamond-tipped tips, engineered to saw through stone without causing it to collapse. Probes equipped with cameras and sensors took momentary photographs of artifacts, bronze weapons sharp after 2,000 years, murals depicting bloody wars and fire-consuming cities, chariots and ceremonial vessels set out with fastidious order. Some of the chambers seemed to contain glistening pools of liquid, consistent with mercury. Others contained human skeletons in disturbing poses, some hinting at ritual sacrifice, others sealed alive as if they had been trapped. What archaeologists uncovered painted a grim picture. Qin Shi Huang's underground palace was constructed not in peace but in intimidation. The murals extolled his conquests, his weapons were gleaming symbols of power, and his chambers were laid out as a cosmic map of the empire. More chilling, however, were the skeletons, presumably the remains of the thousands of laborers who were sacrificed to keep the secrets of the tomb. Even in death, the emperor perpetuated his tyranny, tying human lives into perpetual servitude. The tomb was not as much a grave as it was a kingdom of terror. Experts see this design as the ultimate manifestation of a paranoid personality. Qin Shi Huang was fixated on control. While alive, he burned books, buried scholars alive, and imposed conformity throughout his empire. In death, he tried to dominate the afterlife with swords, poison, and a legion of clay soldiers. His tomb was a fortress, not to honor his soul, but to continue his rule through terror. The mercury rivers were more than a symbol of his power, more than that, they were chemical walls, making the tomb itself an instrument of defense against intruders. This raises deep questions. Should such a location ever be opened? On the one hand, historians believe that the tomb may contain invaluable cultural artifacts, ancient medical, metallurgical, and governmental knowledge that could serve the benefit of humanity. The Terracotta Army discovery is already a proof that ancient myths were based on facts. Unveiling the central chamber can rewrite our picture of China's rise as a superpower. On the other hand, critics are warning us about devastating effects. The artifacts can crumble into pieces at once upon airing. The mercury would contaminate the environment. And most of all, the emperor's final testament was that his tomb would be forever sealed. To break in would be a desecration of a sacred border, or an unleashing of a curse, if not supernatural, then historical, cultural, and environmental. The argument is not yet resolved. Whispers abound that partial openings already uncovered atrocities too ghastly to make public, and that Chinese authorities knowingly withheld the results. Why, they wonder, would so much planning be undertaken, only for there to be silence? Was it so incriminating what they discovered that it simply could not be brought before the world? The secrecy only cast further mystery. What is evident is that Qin Shi Huang's tomb is not simply an archaeological site. It is a message chiseled into stone and locked in poison. It informs us that some rulers did not construct monuments to be remembered but to dominate, even in death. It compels us to be aware of the risks of digging too far into the past. Some secrets can enlighten us, yet others can lead to destruction. The first emperor of China possibly realized this more than anyone. By making his own tomb a fortress, he left not only a resting place but also a warning, that power, fear, and obsession can transcend even death itself. And there the mound stays, unlooted for over 2 millennia, its secrets hidden behind walls of rock and rivers of poison. Scientists persist in scanning, speculating, and arguing. But until that day when man decides to cross that last barrier, the tomb of Qin Shi Huang will be the largest unopened time capsule on the planet. A reminder that history's most formidable men sometimes make best sense in silence.